3, 2, 1. All right. How are we going to start this, Dan?
God, do we need to have opening lines?
I don't think so. Or we could do opening lines. Okay, here. I know
How
an
about
opening line.
I have one.
Okay.
Are you ready?
All right. Hi. Okay. Hi, I'm Anne-Marie Cox, a proud, childless cat lady.
Hi, I'm Daniel Dresner, and that's a mighty fine couch you got there.
Dan, you can't even really see it. Are you just going like you're just head up, neck
You know
up?
what? It's suggestive. I can read between the camera. That couch it's a good looking
All right,
couch.
you can
That's
read
all I'm
between the
saying.
cushions.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, welcome to a special episode of Space the Nation that we're calling Speculative Nonfiction, a quick dive into current politics as we are living through the most momentous decade in politics in the span of weeks.
Yes. And I just want to stress Anna and I are both exhausted by this. For future like God willing 20 years from now politics will settle down. People will think, "Oh, I wish I was living during this interesting time." I want to be very clear about this. This is exhausting. Okay?
Yeah.
We're doing this because it's our way to stay sane, but God, this has just been a long week.
It's been a long, I guess, 3 weeks. I can't believe it's only been 4 or 5 weeks. Let's see, 2 weeks since the Trump attempted assassination.
2 weeks since it's been 2 weeks in a day since Trump was the attempted assassination. I guess, which means a little more than 2 weeks since Vance was named as the VP, and obviously just less than a week since Biden dropped out.
Oh, and there was that debate that made some,
that's in some ways the trigger for a lot of all this. Yes.
Right. So, in fact, we're going to start on the left side of the aisle.
Oh.
Talking about Kamala and her evolution into a presidential candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And do you want to start with what you're thinking about that, Dan?
Sure. So, I mean, I've got two big thoughts, I think. The first one is that I think this has gone about as well as you could have possibly hoped for if you're a Democrat. It's worth remembering, it's not like Democrats really had a very high opinion of Kamala Harris prior to this. I mean, her 2020 campaign, crashed and burned before Iowa. Her first year or two as a vice president did not go terribly well. There were justifiable reasons why some people were like, let's have an open convention rather than, say it should be Kamala Harris. What I think she has done over this past week has frankly reassured a lot of people that might otherwise have had doubts. First, she actually did the legwork. She and her team called everyone. She had the nomination sewn up within 24 hours. I think the surge of fundraising and volunteer support, suggested the degree to which, frankly, Biden was holding the Democratic Party's campaign back. But, Harris has clearly surfed into this, it would be safe to say, in that, her first couple of speeches has gone, extremely well. I think the most impressive thing is sort of the dogs that haven't barked. There has been very little backbiting from Biden's staff about what Harris is doing. And similarly, there was not a peep from Harris when Biden was underwater. And again, this requires message discipline and political skills that you need to run a real campaign. So in that sense, she's done really well. And I think the polling has reflected that. There are real questions to doubt, the validity of polling right now because it's just been a crazy week. But the preliminary evidence suggests that basically Harris has reset the race to where it was before the debate. And that's pretty impressive inside of a week.
Yeah, I think there's another dog that didn't bark that is a dog that I own, which is the progressive wing of the party being willing to stand a cop.
Yeah.
I want to be very clear. She's a cop.
Sure.
There's sort of a narrative happening with like the online libs, sort of like neoliberal libs that's like, she put sexual predators away, which, okay, great. She also put away parents whose kids were skipping school. Like, she's a cop. That was her job. I'll grant that was her job. but there's, real systemic problems with the American judicial system, and she was a part of the problem side of it. That said, I am psyched to vote for her. This is a tough time to be a prison abolitionist. It is. But I believe we are keeping our powder dry. Yes. I have seen fellow sort of abolitionists and ACABers just be willing to be like, you know what? It is the most discipline I've ever seen from my people, basically.
I mean, again, and this is not just due to Harris. I think you're right. It's due to the entire Democratic Party, all the wings of it, which, the one thing this past week has made extremely clear is just how badly they all want to beat Donald Trump again.
Even the, anti-war crime folks, which is what I'll call it. I don't like calling it pro-Palestine. Are willing to, not everyone, but there is I think a pretty large segment of, again, these are people that I basically agree with, that are like, there is a bigger goal here.
Right.
There is, like, I was talking to somebody who was telling me about a friend who's pretty, far left, and who was saying, got to tear down the bill, Democratic Party in order to rebuild it. And I was like, but we can't do that unless they win. Like,
yeah,
civil rights will be so decimated.
The way I would put it,
there's we can't rebuild Democratic Party from the camps.
Right. Would be tricky. It would be tricky. Unless you want to go full like African National Congress and spend generations in prisons, which I really would not recommend. That hasn't worked out well for anyone. Maybe not the way to go. The way I would put it is that, you're right, that basically all the wings of the party have decided, okay, we are fine with this. And to be fair, Kamala Harris, I think, is also, of 2024, is not the same Kamala Harris of 2019.
I agree. Fully agree.
Where, she's not a cop anymore.
Well, she has progressed she's made vocal ideas that are not aligned with like copness. Right.
And I think the biggest shift for Harris, which has been underappreciated, was post Dobbs, she became the administration's point person on reproductive freedoms.
Stealing my thunder, Dan.
Oh, sorry. Just that.
No,
just like a man. No, I'm sorry.
It is. I want to embrace a dude talking about how important this is. I do want you to acknowledge I have been banging this drum for months and months and months.
Yes. No. I remember your July 4th post. Yes. Yeah. No, and Harris's theme of sort of freedom, like economic freedom, reproductive freedom, that's a different register than what Biden had been talking about. I actually think that might work. Biden
was talking like he was like a fucking 20-year time warp.
Yeah. So this reminds me, the other thing that I think has been really interesting this week has been just the shift in tone in terms of the critical attacks from the Harris campaign towards Trump and Vance, using the exact same staff as the Biden campaign. So, Sahil Kapoor had an interesting tweet. We're sort of comparing what the Biden press releases were to the Trump press releases, to the Harris press releases. And that basically what Kamala Harris is doing is pointing out how weird these guys are. That, partially it's JD Vance, but it's mostly the lot of them, just saying some really weird shit, both in clips that have been found and in stuff they are campaigning now. And I find this really interesting because I don't think Trump or the sort of MAGA folks are used to this. And I don't know if it'll work, but I do think it's one of those things where it's a clever way of going after Republicans.
I agree. And I also feel like a little bit. So one of the the ways I've been disillusioned with being a pundit, and I'm kind of trying to transition out of that, is I don't like trying to predict how people are going to respond to things.
Right. That's fair.
That is, I want to be out of that business. I can talk about how I respond to things, and I can talk about what I think the right things are to do. Right. And I also feel pretty confident as a recovering historian, to point at things that have happened in the past. Right. And one thing that did not work in 2016 was to just make fun of Trump, right? To make fun of his weight, to make fun of his hair, to make fun of his tie, his clothes, the way that he talked. And what you're talking about is different than making fun of him.
Yes.
And I think it is tied pretty closely into the Project 2025 and how it's when you talk about how fucking weird these guys are, what they're really saying is how out of step, how anachronistic, how like it's more than fuddy-duddy. It's like puritanical, controlling, kind of fetishizing certain things, like it's not just like, oh, they're weird, haha. It's they are not like the America that we want to envision ourselves to be.
The other word they've used to great effect has been creepy.
Perfect.
Yes. And I think this is where Harris can do this in a way that Biden simply couldn't. Partly because, not a huge deal, but Biden had his own creepy moments. We've all seen those videos. It's a little more innocuous from Biden, but nonetheless, those videos just make it clear.
They're creepy men. That's what she can say. It's not just they're creepy. These are creepy dudes who want to control you.
Right, but you don't even need to say men. Creepy is in and of itself the appropriate adjective. And I am curious to see whether it'll work. Like you, I don't want to predict, and I think we know it didn't
work.
Yeah.
And the other piece on that I want to say is like when I can talk about what I think the right thing to do is, and I think this is also a thing that's more appealing, although I'm less sure of that, which is talking about the rest of democracy is important. I care about democracy. I think I've said before, I'm not sure if I said it on the show, and I've said it to you, is that's an abstract concept,
right?
And abortion rights are a concrete thing that are good to talk about because that's what is at risk.
Well, this, by the way, is why I like Harris's emphasis on freedom, because it allows her to talk about reproductive freedom and about abortion, but that's not the only thing she's talking about. I think if you tie it into these larger themes, again, abortion is a question of democracy as well. I think that works. It works on multiple levels. It's about the specific thing, which is a very unpopular position for Republicans, but it also ties it into, you think it's just going to stop here? There are other things going on, Project 2025 and so on and so forth. And I think that I am optimistic that will work.
Okay, we're going to take a pause while I deal with Exley. I'll start here. So right as you and I were recording, it was reported that he said some crazy shit. Do
you want to timestamp this? Because that doesn't narrow it down.
It's not even a headline, but this particular crazy shit was about Christians voting. I sent it to you. So here we go. Christians, get out and vote just this time. You won't have to do it anymore. 4 more years. You know what? It will be fixed. It will be fine. You won't have to vote anymore. My beautiful Christians. I love you, Christians. I am a Christian. I love you. Get out. You got to get out and vote. In 4 years, you don't have to again. We'll have it fixed so good, you're not going to have to vote. So that's fun. That's
okay.
Yeah.
I have one question, though, because I thought I did hear this clip, and I thought Trump didn't say I'm a Christian. I thought he said I'm not a Christian.
Well, what I'll say about that is that it's weird to say you Christians if what you are is a Christian.
Yep.
So I'm willing to believe that I didn't go so far as to actually listen. He says weird shit all the time.
Yeah.
You and I, like, there's some predictable online freak out about this. And to be clear, this is a bad thing to say.
Yes.
This is it portrays a worldview that I do think Trump believes. Like, when he is saying this, I believe he is telling Christians you won't have to vote again. But here is what I think. I don't know if he has an idea about what that means or how that would happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think this is connected.
He's just making a big promise.
Right. No,
he's just like, you'll never have to buy another apartment building again.
Right. Life will be great. No, it's connected to this. It comes from the exact same place as when Trump said he would only be a dictator on day one, which a lot of people made a lot of hay of. And it's the same premise, which is he generally is just promising, look, I'm going to do such a great job as president that no one will care about politics ever again. I think that's the way I would interpret it. It's a very generous interpretation, but I've heard enough Trump speak to know that's basically what he means. Now, it's a bad thing to say. It's a ridiculous thing to say. And I do think that, it's appropriate for him to be condemned for it. But again, going back to what we were talking about in terms of Biden versus Harris, this is the kind of thing that Biden would jump all over and talk about it as a serious threat to democracy. And I will be curious to see how the Harris campaign copes with it.
And it is a serious threat, but not because of Trump.
Right.
It's a serious threat because of the theocrats that coalesce around him and are willing to take that literally. Do see that as a free pass to do the kinds of things that are outlined in Project 2025.
Right.
Like, that's the truly scary thing. But I also think that there's a huge chunk of Trump supporters who, fucking Selena Zito, she's right, seriously, but not literally. There is a huge chunk of people who kind of could read Trump the way he wants to be read. The animals.
Just so you know, I couldn't hear anything. So.
Oh, okay. Let's see. I'll try to pick. Editing the video thing is hard, so it's fine though.
You said
it's
Selena
totally
Zito.
Fine.
Go ahead.
Selena. Oh, yeah, fucking Selena Zito. Taking seriously, but not literally, because I do think there's this huge chunk of Trump supporters who are exactly that.
Yeah.
Right. They read him the way that you have learned to read him, the way that I think he wants to be read, which is in this puffery sense, right? So to call that version of Trump a threat to democracy, the people that show up at Trump rallies know that that's not exactly what he means. What is the real threat to democracy are people like J.D. Vance.
Yes, and that is a good segue to discuss him. Although I do want to close on one point, which is, I agree with you about the Project 2025 stuff. And that's the stuff that I frankly don't want to be labeled as weird. I want it to be labeled as dangerous. Weird gives off sometimes a slightly goofy thing, but Project 2025 is worse than creepy. Project 2025 is a fundamental threat to American liberties, and I hope people are very serious about it.
As a person, and I think actually woman might be important as the modifier than a female person. Creepy can mean dangerous, Dan.
That's okay. Point taken there. Yes. As a man for whom that's never been applied to me, but but to my face.
Creepy can mean dangerous. And so I actually think that for a good portion of the population, when Project 2025 is described as creepy, we know.
Okay.
We know. And I also think for a lot of people, because we talk about horror movies and stuff, creepy is not just a laughable thing. I think actually creepy is just a perfect word because it's...
I think creepy is a good word. It was weird that I was reacting to. I think you're right. Creepy works.
Weird. Weird, boo, creepy.
Yes, for Project 2025, we're in agreement.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's move on. So,
talking about weird and creepy.
Speaking of weird and creepy, let's talk about J.D. Vance and all those rumors involving furniture. I don't know if there is a word for this, Anna, but J.D. Vance has fallen into a zone where he literally can do anything, and it will be interpreted as creepy and weird. He has not had a good 2 weeks since being chosen as the vice presidential nominee. In no small part because, and really, it's because people just looked at the things he has said and done over the last, 4 or 5 years, and he said some really creepy shit. Just ridiculous stuff. If you're a woman and you have not given birth, you're not really a parent.
And you don't have you don't have a stake in the future of democracy.
The future of the democracy, which is just a bizarre fucking thing to say. So bizarre that Jennifer Aniston weighed in on it, and Jennifer Aniston does not talk about politics. So this is, you've woken up Gen X Taylor Swift. Yeah.
And it's funny because I even got pushback from my friends who are like, Kamala is a stepmom. And I'm like, yes, but that kind of defensiveness, I think, erases those of us who are childless. And Kamala has chosen not to reproduce, right? And I think that's fine.
Yeah.
It just needs to be whatever reason you don't have biological children, it's all good.
Yes.
Yes. It's all good. I do think calling her not a mom, and I think that there's sort of the word childless, it has to do with the weird meaning of childless, right? like as a slam, but I think that to be defensive to the word childless as a slur is where I personally kind of get like, no, she doesn't have biological children. And that's totally cool.
There's so many ways.
Because what Vance was saying was biological children.
Right.
Like, that's the weird, creepy thing about him. Although we still haven't gotten to...
Oh, are there other weird things that J.D. Vance has been associated with? Whatever could you mean, Anna?
So I assume people who are watching or listening to this know, but there was a kind of trolling post or meme that was I think, in spirit akin to Ted Cruz being the Zodiac killer.
Yes.
Like, it wasn't intended to be taken very seriously.
And we are not taking it seriously, just to be clear.
Now,
yes.
I will tell my story, my story of this meme, which is that, okay, the meme was that JD Vance had sex with a couch. It involved a rubber glove and some other things. I think like a lubricant of some sort. Just to be totally like it's in the meme.
Yeah.
I saw the meme. And and like most of liberal America, having bought a copy of Hillbilly Elegy but not read it, I did not dismiss out of hand that this is because also it comes with page numbers. That's actually the beauty of this particular meme.
Oh, right. The claim was that it was in Hillbilly Elegy, right?
In Hillbilly Elegy, and that it cited some pages.
Yeah.
And having read a bunch of memoirs, including some pretty weird ones, that's not the absolute strangest jerking off story I've ever heard. It's up there, but people do strange stuff.
Anna, I hate to ask this. What is the weirdest jerking off story?
Nope.
You'll open yourself up to that. I mean,
nope. And I will close that off.
Good.
Not the...
Put that cushion away, Anna.
There's a lot of people do weird shit.
Sure.
Right. And I am like a non-kink shaming person in general. Like,
right.
I'm all right, Yeah. And also it fits in the kind of memoir that I think Hillbilly Elegy is, which is that I come from this weird benighted culture where there is lots of immoral stuff that happens, and that I was tempted by it. And, there is a part in it where he says he might be gay because he doesn't like girls.
Really?
Like, he doesn't. Yeah. Oh, this is 100% in it.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Is that he's like 8 years old.
Oh.
And he doesn't. Yeah, right. So he's 8 years old, and he realizes he doesn't want to kiss a girl. And so he goes to his grandmother and he says, I think I might be gay. And she says, his meemaw or whatever. And she asks why, and he says, you do not listen to the If Books Could Kill about this?
No, I did not listen to the If Books Could Kill about this.
So he says, I don't think I want to kiss a girl. And she's like, do you want to suck cock?
The grandma asked that?
Yeah, she's like, do you want to,
no version of that should be asked to an 8-year-old.
I believe she says something slightly less graphic than that.
Any better? No, Jesus.
Or do you want to have sex with a man? It's like something. Basically, she puts the option to him. Do you want to have sex with men? And he's like, no. And she's like, well, then you're not gay, but I would love you anyway.
Okay. God. I mean,
given this actual thing, which I am now going to look, I'm going to let you talk and finish this story about. But actually, so which my version, so the thing I want to get to was I was like, maybe. And then, Dan, you pick up this meme story with the AP fact.
Yes. So what happened was that, again, this was burbling around Twitter, I think, basically. And then the AP had to put out a fact check story with the wonderful title, No, J.D. Vance did not have sex with a couch. And then it just took off. Like, basically, everyone it was a classic example of the Streisand effect, where someone was trying to put this to bed, and everyone just sort of said, well, I don't know about this. How is the AP couching that term? And, like, just the amount of puns was quite extraordinary. And again, I think partially this is still going on, really, in no small part, because no one is actually claiming that J.D. Vance had sex with a couch. No one believes that. But yes,
if he did, that would be okay. That would be fine.
Sure, but the point is that everyone thinks this is a very funny thing. What is surprising is how mockable J.D. Vance is.
Well,
about this.
What I would say, what's hilarious about the story, and I do honestly, I said this to someone and they didn't believe me. I was like, actually, if it really did happen, and part of me would make him more. I'm going to use the word relatable because he would have had non-procreative sex at some point in his life. Unless there's a little ottoman running around somewhere with eyeliner.
That's the thing. If he did have sex with a couch, by J.D. Vance's own rhetoric, we would have to take him less seriously. He was not a life creator. I mean, it's a real problem there.
So I wanted to look up and make sure that I wasn't making shit up about the thing about what his Mima or Mama told him. Mm-hmm. So he told her that he thought he might be gay because he didn't like the idea of girls. And she said, "Don't be a fucking idiot. How would you know you're gay?" He explained. And then she said, "JD, do you want to suck dicks?"
Oh God, that is worse. No, that's horrible.
How old was he?
I like "Don't be a fucking idiot." That is actually
8 or 9. I didn't imagine that. 8 or 9.
God. Jesus Christ! Wow, that is bad. Now I'm gonna have this
when you were 8 or 9, did you want to do either of those things?
I did want to kiss girls when I was 9. I'm not gonna lie, but
really? Interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did. Personally was not on that track for girls or boys at that point.
Fair enough.
But sure, Dan, early bloomer, great. I want to talk more about what I think is funny about JD and the couch. Why I don't think it's kink shaming. I think a lot of the people who are taking play, I mean, there may be some out there, but a lot of the joy that people are taking in this is that it's a fucking trap for him, as it were. Although also having sex with a convertible sofa would be a kind of trap as well.
Oh, boo. Well, if it was a pullout, though, then it'd be.
Well, he's a Catholic, Dan.
Yes, exactly. What I do want to point out before we move on,
he can't deny it. Like if denying it makes it worse. The fact that it's in the media bloodstream.
Yeah,
and it's just attached to him. Yeah. In the Ted Cruz's Zodiac Killer way. Right.
As I said, I think J.D. Vance has now arrived at the point in terms of the media where he can't do anything normal. Like the problem is that everything, has just this slight weird air to it. And by the way, I also do want to point out that one of the things J.D. Vance, I believe, said this week, which is weird and creepy, is that he said that basically the shaman guy who rushed the Capitol on January 6th.
QAnon shaman.
Yeah, QAnon shaman. Sounds like it would be like a great guy to have a beer with. So that's actually weird and creepy, I would argue. And I'm not on board with that. So, he hasn't acquitted himself well, and he's indeed acquitted himself so poorly that there are now rumors coming out of Trump world that Trump thinks he made a mistake. Although I don't think he can back out of it. So that's
he can't back out of it. Yeah. And also, I bet Trump believes the couch thing.
The thing is, even Trump thinks that's probably weird. Like that's
and I believe I number one think he thinks he. I think he believes it.
Right.
And number two, obviously, as weird as Trump is.
Yes. He thinks this is weirder. Yes.
That's weirder.
Yeah.
I also think, or wanted to point out that JD said he was, some friendly commentator asked him about the catless child, childless cat lady.
Childless
cat lady. Yes. Proud. Yes. Childless, but also cat lady. I'm, as you know, bipedal, which I wish that there was a dog and cat mom version of this, but in any case, he was asked about it and he was like, double down, but said something like, people are reacting to the sarcasm and not the content. And it's like, nobody.
They're reacting to the content. Yes. Let's be very clear about that. And then he doubled down on the content with Megyn Kelly. No. Like, if that was cleanup, that was cleanup where, like, he's seeing, like, some dog poop and trying to clean it up. And instead is just spreading it everywhere. So, like, no. The fundamental takeaway from the last 2 weeks is that J.D. Vance is bad at politics. Which is, by the way, something that anyone who paid attention to the 2022 race should have known, because Vance won that Senate seat by, like, 6 points, which was nearly 20 points less than Mike DeWine were on the governor's race. So, like, he is not good, and we are going to...
And his opponent, Tim Ryan, was terrible. Like, it was a race
Tim
of,
Ryan
like,
wasn't
the
terrible.
Weirdos.
He was actually pretty good. Tim Ryan actually ran a pretty good race. I'm going to defend Tim Ryan.
I don't think he's also weird. Like,
Sure.
I find him to be just a strange affect kind of guy, which normally I like. I don't necessarily like in a politician. Which reminds me, JD and the QAnon shaman are both examples of someone that I would totally like to meet. Mm-hmm. Like, I would love to sit down and talk to them because I find them fascinating. Mm-hmm. Wait, don't drink.
Not you. Yes, that's true. Sorry. Apologies.
And also, I don't want to be friends.
Yes. Like, that's what have a beer means. Like, JD Vance wants to be friends with the QAnon shaman guy, and I'm like, really? You do? Because that seems...
I don't want to be friends.
That's weird. Yeah.
I am fascinated by people who turn to weird beliefs. Yeah. Like, I want to understand, like, what are the circumstances that leads people to believe stuff that are creepy / weird.
And in that sense, Vance actually would be interesting, because this is clearly there's actually an interesting New York Times story that just came out today involving his relationship with a Yale Law School classmate who is transgender and, you know, very far to the left. And they really did have who is mentioned, I believe, actually in Hillbilly Elegy. And they had a pretty serious, you know, friendship for quite some time. And now, you know, not since 2022, basically. And it does highlight the way in which Vance has changed.
It is literally nominally a science fiction podcast. I do want to point out there is a connection here, which is apparently JD Vance is a huge fan of Tolkien.
Yes, Lord of the Rings. That
Lord
does
of the Rings.
Track. Yeah.
And yeah, he's one of those. I am not a fan, although we have tons of fans in the audience. I respect that fandom. There is a marginal or more marginal portion of that fandom is a little weird. It's a little weird. A little weird. Reading it gets really into the Catholic stuff of Tolkien.
Right.
Like, gets into, and you know, even though he's a relatively newly born Catholic.
Let's move on. I think we should close out by discussing the veepstakes. So Kamala Harris has to pick her vice presidential nominee. Given the peculiarities of various calendars, I think she has to make this decision basically in the next 10 days. I did see a Bloomberg story just as we started recording.
It's down to like 4 or 5.
What I saw was 3, which is Arizona Senator Mark Kelly, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz.
You want to go first on this one?
No, I'm happy to defer to you. I could give you my thoughts, but
so again, foregrounding, I don't know what the people react to spin on this is. My understanding, I will kind of look at it from like just my limited, well, not limited. I did this for a living for a long time.
You did.
Sort of my thoughts on what the thinking might be, and then who I think actually would be a good pick. Dan, I don't think they can be Shapiro.
Too many Jews?
I am sad to report.
It's okay. You can say it. I'm Jewish. That was my reaction as well.
Yeah, I think America, we already have a black woman on the ticket. And I think that it's a difference between, like, I don't think, you know, America is full of anti-Semites. I just think that it is tough for people to accept lots of change at once and lots of new things at once. And I don't even think it would be like a conscious thing of going into the booth and being like, I can't vote for a Jewish person.
Right. No, that's not how it works. Yes. Agreed.
Yeah. It would be a hurdle to overcome. That is maybe the way to put it. I mocked my good friend Jake Klisovich, in case he's listening, for the Waltz rumor, because I was like, at the time it was a rumor, and I was like, they can't be serious about Waltz. Like,
they appear to be serious.
Like, well, I was like, Minnesota's dark blue. Like, they don't really need it. Why would they do that? But I have to say, now that it's real, he's awesome.
I would also
Minnesota is an incredibly progressive state. Waltz has been at the forefront of, like, you know, protecting trans kids and saying, like, please move here. You know, if you have been chased out of the state where you live, come here, we will protect you. Same with abortion seekers. They're out front on that and making it a friendly state. There is an abortion clinic like across the street from the Minnesota airport.
Wow.
From the Minneapolis St. Paul airport. And they are proud of it. Right. They have like their government getting off carbon, you know, in the next 10 years. They're free breakfast and lunch for all public school students. Like just, and I could talk about their sort of addiction care stuff in that state, which has been on the cutting edge for decades. I would love to have him. He's also a veteran, business owner, school teacher.
Yeah.
Like, he's a wonderful pick. All of that said, I think that if I were choosing, I would go with the astronaut.
You go with Mark Kelly.
I go with the astronaut, veteran, and a state that I think that they really need. And he could get them. Also, I wouldn't mind having gun violence on the ticket.
Yeah, so it takes Gabby Giffords and also puts her on the national stage potentially.
All right, your take, Dan.
My take, so as I said, my choice would actually have been Andy Bashir. And
yeah, you mentioned that, yeah.
Yeah, no. And I don't know how much credence to give to the Bloomberg story, but let's assume that it's true. Of the three, I'm reluctant on Shapiro, if for no other reason. I will say, there was a poll that just came out that showed Shapiro's favorables in Pennsylvania are honestly astonishing. It's in he's in the 60s, which for a swing state is rather extraordinary. So like, this is clearly someone who's gifted at politics. That said, Shapiro has been governor for all of 2 years. And this is one of those things where, again, my inclination is that I don't know if a vice presidential pick can really help a ticket, but I know it can hurt one. And we learned that from Sarah Palin. And J.D. Vance. Yes, I think J.D. Vance is teaching us this. So, you know, I would not go for Shapiro just because he's so new on the stage that you don't know what's going to come up if you actually pick him. I mean, the possibility of a surprise.
There's some rumors that are also not great that I won't get into here, but yeah.
Walz, I will say this, Walz actually is the one who sort of also pushed the weird line. He was out in the forefront on this. There's a great Politico story pointing out that like he was one of the first to go on MSNBC and talk about you know, Trump and Vance as sort of weird. So that might be one of the reasons why, you know, Harris likes him. And I do like the school teacher thing. I'm not going to lie. Like he sort of has that like vice principal thing that like maybe you don't like as a student, but as a parent, you do want someone to basically call out this shit as weird. Like that's potentially entertaining. Also, this is the most superficial thing in the world, though. It is amusing to me that Harris and Walz are the same age, and Walz looks like he's Harris's stepfather. You know, like
biggest age difference in two people who are the same age.
Exactly. I tend to, of those three, I agree with you that of those three, I would go with Kelly. First of all, it again puts Arizona in play. Second, Kelly has been on the national stage now for quite some time. You know, astronaut, as you say, he's got a great resume. He brings along Gabby Giffords. What is interesting, by the way, is that if it winds up being Kelly, that will be the most Western Democratic ticket ever. In fact, I think Harris is will be the first Democratic Party nominee from the state of California.
I also wanted to say about sort of putting gun violence on the ticket. And this is, I'm meaning to say, I think I'm going to write something about it for Flaming Hydra, the Writers Collective newsletter that I am a participant in, that I get paid for as much as I do for any op-ed that I write anywhere.
Wow.
Because, and I own the story that I write. It's such a great thing. Okay. Look it up. Flaming Hydra.
Yep.
Lots of really amazing writers are a part of it. But what I want to write about is that having Mark Kelly on the ticket to talk about gun violence, the right is still perhaps appropriately obsessed with the assassination attempt, right? Understandable. I'm not going to say that they shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Also obsessed with conspiracy theories about it and what should have been done to prevent it. Dan, do you know the one thing they don't talk about when they talk about how that could have been prevented?
Is it gun control?
It's the fact that the guy had an AR.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, it is weird to listen to an hour of Republican or right-wing talk radio. They go through all the different failures that perhaps some of them are.
And there are genuine failures. They have
genuine failures.
Absolutely genuine
failures. Go right down that list.
Yep.
There's this lacuna. The one thing that wasn't a problem was the fact that this 20-year-old had an assault rifle.
Yep. That could be an issue.
I shouldn't laugh.
No, it's. Let me this way. I will close out on
and Mark Kelly can be like, look, your guy almost died from gun violence. You know, my wife was a victim of gun violence. I'm the one who's actually done something to prevent the future gun violence. What has your side done?
That's a good line.
What has your side done?
Right. You've just appointed Supreme Court justices who threw out the one gun control measure that was actually taken over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
The one thing I want to close out on, actually, you brought this up. A small note of sympathy to the Republicans. There was a story that came out like a day or two ago that the Secret Service has basically recommended to Trump not to hold any more outdoor rallies as a way of sort of preserving his safety. Trump has rejected that, and I got to say, I am pro-Trump on this. This is about the one thing where, like, oh, no, I completely agree with Trump. Fuck you, Secret Service. Like, this is one of those things where there's a reason why the director of the Secret Service had to resign. They have had clusterfuck after clusterfuck over the last 5 to 10 years. If Trump wants to have outdoor rallies, he should absolutely, want to do that. This is really about freedom of assembly. The Secret Service has got to learn how to do its job better. Like, this is where I actually do have some sympathy for Trump.
I can have sympathy without saying go for it. Because I think the notion of saying, I want to be able to do these things, they're such fuck ups I can't, and I'm going to hold really huge rallies and arenas is a perfectly fine thing to say that would then also keep him safe or safer. So I don't know. I don't agree. Like, if something is dangerous, even if it shouldn't be, then don't do the dangerous thing.
I guess I guess what I'm trying to say is that I want the Secret Service to do much better than what it's doing.
Can't we say, yes, they should be doing much better? And let's not put Trump in situations where because they're such fuck ups, he is at risk.
Right. But I guess, leave it this way. I
think the line, I want to do outdoor rallies and I can't because they're fuck ups, is actually...
That's actually a pretty potent line. You're right. Yeah. Leave it this way. What I have legitimate gripes about is that the Secret Service is so bad at their job that they are somewhat restricting Trump's ability to assemble. And that's...
it's just when you said, I'm with Trump on this, I thought what you were going to say is, yeah, let's see if he can get shot again. That's what's where my mind... And you don't mean that.
No, I don't.
You don't mean put him at risk.
No, I don't mean put him at risk. I mean... what I mean is political candidates should be able to hold rallies wherever they want to, within reason. And that's... I'm incredibly frustrated with the Secret Service that they have made this difficult.
Okay. If your uncle was a convicted drunk driver and showed no signs of letting up on drunk driving, would you put your kid in the car with your uncle, even though he should not drink and drive?
Right. And I was going to say, but this is the Secret Service, but for all I know, that's their problem. I mean,
Yeah, what I'm saying is, you don't know. You don't know if they're going to clean up their act immediately. And also, someone, a necessarily drunk driver, you don't know if they might backslide. They have no proven record. So I would just say, hey, Trump, buddy, it sucks that you can't do this, but for your sake, and also the good line. It's a good line, you have to admit. All right, so here's to no more gun violence or violence at all. Talking about bad for democracy, man. And there's a whole nother riff maybe we'll do later about what it looks like the aims of this shooter might have been, which were, it looks like, not political.
Yeah, let's not even. Yeah.
And I have thoughts on that too. Which we will do perhaps in our next episode, which will come either with breaking news or same time next week. Until then,
keep this channel open.